think I was due for an update here on some thoughts that I was thinking about the last couple days on some things I wanted to talk about out here. And we got through that snowstorm the other week, so that was a pretty big victory in my book. And if no one knows what I'm referring to, you can go back in my previous videos from the last couple weeks, describing kind of what the temperatures were like in all of the Earthships and kind of the lowest temperatures that we dealt with, as well as, we got to minus 40 about, I think, out here, minus 37 to minus 40, something like that. So pretty cold, and we survived, as well as a lot of our chickens and birds, our ducks and turkeys, and our goats, which I need to do a video on the goats. But pretty much right the day after that huge snowstorm, then it jumped up to 50 degrees. So everything just started melting. It got all muddy and mucky. Stuff was blowing around. I had to fix some of the solar panels and the situation there. Little chaotic, but you can see we still got some snow and some ice, and soon enough it'll be warm out. We're gonna start doing some cleanup that we didn't really get to finish before the first snow kind of came and covered everything. So we will be slowly discovering what we missed and got blown around in the wind. So definitely forgive any of the things that you see kind of blown around. We've got our trash bins we were collecting and whatnot. And honestly, I guess that brings me maybe to my first point of talking here is, how we deal with our trash situation on the property. And, it's kind of one thing that led me out to living off grid and wanting to do things more sustainably was, a visit to the landfill. I think that is something that could have an impression on pretty much anybody, but I guess for myself, it's definitely was a pretty big impact as far as, just how much waste, goes to the landfill, and that's what got me started on even the composting train, was thinking about how much we waste as far as food. It's 30 to 40% of food waste is in the landfill, so that's something that drove me to do composting, and it goes the same with just, why we do the Earthship and the concepts that we do with recycled materials and whatnot, to definitely lessen the impact on our part, at least, of how much, we're contributing to the landfill. And, some people might have some different thoughts or opinions on, how we do things out here. And quite frankly, it's our way of doing things. And these videos should be not so much of, you need to do it this way or that way. It should be more so that, it's the inspiration or just the example for, what's possible for yourself. And honestly, learning from maybe my mistakes or different ideas and concepts that, someone might have for their own homestead. So I'm going to start walking, but we got our solar set up here and we're cranking out some power today. It's a little cloudy, but we've got full batteries, so solar panels are doing its job. So it's nice that we had more than enough power through that storm. We had a couple good sunny days, so even through those really dark, cloudy snowstorm days, we had more than enough power to keep lights on for our plants and stuff like that. But the recycled materials aspect, it's kind of the thing with the landfill. That's one concept, and that's just, kind of the path that we took out here as far as, what we wanted to do and wanted to accomplish. But honestly, that kind of brings me to another point, in the sense of, how much money it can save people. If we were to recycle it, try to utilize as many materials, for building structures and such like that. That I guess that's with the Earthship model, because we're using glass bottles in certain cases, like in the house, we have the shower and whatnot. And, we're able to grab a lot of these windows that would have otherwise got smashed and thrown into the landfill, and that's a big money saver, as kind of wonky and different shapes all these windows are. I did make puzzle piece a lot of things together and make it work, but how much money it saved us, just overall cost of doing the whole, all three of these structures, even, how much money we saved on glass. And we were able to, take old glass off of somebody else's hands that they were replacing. They had the money to replace and get new windows, but they were windows that were still good, or the old windows were still good, and it was nice to be able to take these windows off of people's hands and save them the trip to the dump as well. So it kind of, it kind of goes all around. It spreads out to a lot of people just doing some of these little recycle runs that we do, for glass and for wood and for tires and such like that. That's one huge thing. How many tires how many tires are thrown into their own little separate dump area every year? How often do we all have to replace tires and throughout the world and stuff like that? So there's just a lot of those thoughts that run through my mind, and that's essentially what brings us to taking some action in how we construct buildings up here. So, and that's where we get the Earthship. And I guess that's kind of the thing for being recycled homes. They were lifesavers, essentially, through that kind of once in a couple years or 50 years storm. I mean, there was no heat in this edition, and it still stayed in the 40s throughout the whole time, and without a fire going, mind you. So that was one thing, is I was having fires and making fires through the night to basically bring up the temperature to keep it warm through the night, and still coming back and it being 45, 50 degrees, going through minus 40, degrees. That's crazy to think about. And in structures that aren't even 100% complete, so these are structures that aren't even 100% done, but they're still functioning and still were able to manage through that drastic temperature as I slip on ice here. So, that's crazy. And so it's just an all around thing. It was essentially a life saving structure design, as well as it saved us money, and as much time as it did take. Kind of brings me to another thing I wanted to talk about, and that is the tools that we used, because essentially the only tools besides my tangle of cords here, I'm dinking with the solar, off track here. I was trying to set up more solar so we would have more power. So the wiring is a little janky right now. Forgive me. But that it just brings me to, the basic tools that we used throughout all of these structures. A ladder, a shovel, sledgehammer, pickaxe, the flat shovels, and what else did we use? Oh yeah, the drills. The hand drills. We used the Ryobi, the Home Depot brand Ryobi drill, and a hand saw set, mind you. So I didn't have a table saw. I didn't have a lot of, kind of almost critical or maybe essential tools to some people for creating these structures. And I think that's kind of the another big money saving aspect of these recycled homes, of Earthship passive solar design. And you can see that the addition is a bit bigger structure than the other two Earthships that are connected, the annex and the house. But that is something that was a step up in knowledge, I guess, essentially, just with the practice of doing the other Earthships has led up to something a little bit more extravagant, you could say, for up here. Yep, with that extravagant umbrella. I was using that for shading because I need to still build the box area and kind of clean up our area here with the batteries and the solar. So all the inverters and whatnot. I'm going to build a box all around this. So it'll all be encased and shaded and won't get beaten up on, and it'll be more insulated as well too. So, but that's the one thing. All of this was created with simple tools. Nothing too ridiculous in my mind. I guess we hand mixed cement between two people, Nika and I. And using the ladder for the higher parts on some things, and but all together, everything was put together with a hand drill and a hand saw. So, that honestly, that saves a whole lot of money right there, just using simple tools, but also keeping a more simplistic design as well, not making a giant 2-story, kind of house, or, yeah, a multiple level, kind of structure, I guess. So, it's a basic one level. But it's got a higher roof. So kind of rambling with my thoughts a little bit, but that's just some things I wanted to point out. Just what past experience has taught us, as well as just experience in itself of life around us and the normal things that are being done and not really thought about by many people, I guess, in that sense. And I guess for me, that's where kind of the concept of the Earthship, it goes beyond just being cool in that respect, because that's a comment that we get very often from people. Oh, it's super cool. It's super cool. And for us, I'm, at least for myself, I'm kind of beyond that, because it is cool, but it is more the fact that it functions. And, even just going through that storm, it's like, this is a structure that would be able to adapt with the times and the drastic changes in weather and climate that we might be experiencing or will be experiencing in the future. So it's kind of some things to think about when you're thinking preparedness, even, or just homesteading, because homesteading essentially leads to preparedness in that respect. And for myself, thinking about building a homestead or thinking about preparedness in that respect, your housing structure, if you have the homestead or the property, like, your structure is going to be so important to the future development, I think, of your surroundings. Because for us, once we started, we built our first Earthship, the dome. You can go back and look at videos of us creating the dome. That's from 4 or 5 years ago. So you'll have to scroll a little bit down to see those old videos. But yeah, we have 4 Earthships on the property in total. The dome is actually farther down the hill. But like I said, I've got all those videos uploaded so you can look back and see, because that one is all tires and concrete, basically. So that's a bunker right there. It's a little bit of a bunker because it sits in the side of the hill as well. So, I mean, that's just something to think about, when people are, making excuses in my mind about, why they can't live off grid, or, I've thought about it, but, it's getting yourself onto a property is definitely a big factor, and I think, honestly, if people are really serious, and if you're wanting to do this, I think action is going to speak louder than words. Wanting to find not just maybe something for yourself. I think that might be some people might need to think about that kind of option nowadays. Is maybe I don't need a property all to myself. Maybe I can team up with someone that I know and trust. That maybe we can develop a community kind of style on a property, or I can get in with somebody that's already doing it, maybe, in that respect. So times are getting quite different, I'll say. So, I mean, it's just things to think about for, if you're wanting to do this, you're wanting to live off grid and do, the homesteading, because it all leads to being prepared. And it's not that you have to be labeled a prepper, but you homesteading is about preparedness because there's lots of things that happen on the farm. There are unexpected things that happen. The snowstorms where we live up on top of this hill. Sometimes the road that we take back here gets pretty drifted out, like the snow drifts and whatnot. So we really have no choice on if we want to leave or not. And that depends too. We could have someone pick us up at the bottom of the hill, but that was, we had thoughts in mind when we got onto this property and what we were doing, and we did have somewhat kind of expectations, or there were things we did kind of expect to happen, that we would have to kind of sacrifice. And so that is kind of the reality to me, is like there is some sacrifice, but it's what are you willing to sacrifice to, make something for yourself happen or for others, and get onto a property or start building, a structure. So I digress a little bit on that. But that's for another video probably, to talk about some other experiences like that. But money saving is a big thing, and planning all together, looking at every little bit of how to cut costs for yourself. If you have the money, that's fine too. That's more power to you if you have the money to be able to pay people to build things up, uh, and get it done quicker. But I guess that's kind of the joy for us as well, because we know we've been on the property for a while, and that was kind of coming into the property. We knew that it was going to be a project, spanning years worth. But getting a structure up definitely was the important thing. And I think that honestly helped shape a bit more about how we do other things on the farm as well, because it does relate to permaculture and permaculture design. It's not just, to me at least, it's not just considering, how you're gardening or, putting in swales and whatnot. But I also think it does have to do as well with your housing structure and how, you do things within that household structure. So I guess with all my ramblings, I just wanted to point out some things on, ideas on ways people can cut costs, and I guess just our experience at least, and what I've found that's saved us money, the things that we've kind of sacrificed and, had the determination to get through and, get to where we are now, which it's all still, I see it, it's all experimental. We're just experimenting, and that's really what almost, this lifestyle should kind of entail for at least a good amount of people, because this is our own property, so we can do what we want. And with our ideas and the ideals that we have, that's where it comes, like I was saying with the recycled materials. It was more not so much even saving the money. That was a thought, but it's like, man, how much do we throw away that we can still utilize? And that's just the benefit too, is that it saves money. And doing things yourself, that saves a whole lot of money. And I have no building experience at all. I didn't go to school or college or anything like that for building or construction or anything. I did a summer's worth of fencing, and that's about it, and kind of have learned from that point on. So, and that's where, some people, you might want to get your feet wet like that, experiment. It's an experiment. So, but that's where, the ideas and the different ideals that, one might possess for themselves, to be able to come up with things that work for them, and, kind of embrace what, the values and whatnot that they hold within themselves. So I guess you could say that, the values that we hold within ourselves, and our truths, is how we're constructing things here. And just like the points I've told you before, is, the recycling aspect, we almost just about don't bring, I don't think we bring any trash outside of the property. Everything basically stays in house, because we essentially have figured out almost every which way, or not, I can't say we've figured out everything, but we've figured out a lot of ways to deal with that trash, because we do burn some of it in our rocket stove in the house, at least, and in this stove a little bit, separate from wood ash, from wood that I'll just burn strictly to make ash for spreading fertilizer and whatnot on the plants. So, but that's, I think, a good majority of what I wanted to say, honestly, here. We're at right now. I might, yeah, I've just kind of been rambling a little bit. So forgive me if there's any points that I kind of forgot to relay to anyone. Definitely make a comment in the section there for me. But man, right now we're slowly getting settled into the new year here, and there's going to be a lot of cleanup going on because we're going to be getting all of inside of here finished up, as well as getting everything rearranged and resituated for seed starting. I know it looks a little chaotic in here. It's dusty. There's wood. There's spray foam cans. You know, that's just our life. We're only two people, and I think honestly, sometimes we get a little ambitious. That's what I think. A point I'll say to anyone that's gotten this far in the video is that don't let your ambition get a hold of you too much. At least maybe not too often, because it's essentially what happens is that you start going from one project, and then sometimes you want to go to another one, and you've got all these ideas to do so many things, and you want to gather things, and then you want to gather materials, and then things start getting neglected, and then it becomes a little bit chaotic. So one step at a time sometimes. But this is you know just hopefully a reflection of our ideals, that we're not just trying to gather trash and make this place a heap. Honestly, most of the stuff outside is building materials that we just haven't gotten to using for building, essentially. And that is the reality. We're only two people, and we can only get so much done in a summer, with doing the farm chores and feeding animals and, doing laundry and all the regular stuff like you guys do in town, so working jobs. Although we do have our own business here. So that's kind of just another aspect for homesteading, or considering homesteading, is just, finding out how you could make your own business that would enable you to be on your property more, or at your homestead more, that would give you basically the freedom to build a lot quicker, build things up a lot quicker, take the time, yeah, to figure things out like that. That's something that I had thought of even before we got the land, was, how can we make our own business and what can we do? So, and then, honestly, that's where a lot of other things came in with, recycled materials, and using recycled materials, and how to figure out, getting rid of our trash and utilizing our trash more. So, like this was one of our dry amendments. And frankly, now we have the bag that will be able to, I'm going to rip that up a bit more, I think, shred that up a bit more, but we'll be able to spread that now. So, and then that way that's not getting thrown away, and then we're looking at, these, whatever the poly, however these things are woven, these weird bags for the feeds and stuff, that's perfect for putting on top of a small roof structure, like the Tyvek, essentially. That's kind of like what that stuff is. So you can use that for that. That might go on the chicken coop roof, because I might make a little lean-to roof over for catching more rainwater. So, it's just kind of the other aspects when you're thinking about, what are my basic needs? Food, water, and housing. And when we're thinking about all the ways to make a very efficient house, to me, that building the rocket stove, doing the Earthship concepts, the greenhouse, all the permaculture designs, this is to me what makes the most sense, and the direction that I think a lot of people really should kind of consider, trying to go down, as far as, us taking responsibility for ourselves, and what we do on our property. It's just the same respect that anybody else can have the same mindset and, have, do the due diligence of trying to figure out, how can I make my property more efficient, make it work for me, but also taking care of it at the same time and promoting life and promoting, more of the nature to be able to take hold that will essentially positive positive reinforcement there, on the whole cycle just figuring itself out more. And I guess that's what I've found through how we've done things through the last almost 7 years now that we've lived out here. And granted, not everything's perfect. And I think that's just kind of a thing in our existence, in our lives, is that nothing is necessarily perfect. There are flaws, there are little quirks and quirks and quirks and quirks. Kind of weird to say, but that's just kind of how life is. Life is that balance of negative and positive, and it's up to us to basically, utilize the negative to create positive, and, to have a neutral, positive kind of mindset. So I won't ramble too much longer. I'll do a separate video on the goats. I need to talk about the goats because they are still doing well and the babies are doing well. So we still got some plants growing. We still got some strawberries even going in here. So if you've made it this far in the video, I appreciate you guys listening to my ramblings and some of my thoughts and ideas. And yeah, if there's any questions or comments, leave them in the section, not in my battery bank, leave them in the comment section. And I'm pretty good at responding. So otherwise, suggestions for other videos would be great as well. If anyone had any ideas, I do have some more videos that I'm going to make. I just wanted to make this one on the new year with kind of new insights, new experiences, and just kind of discussing maybe a little bit of some things, that were on my mind and that pertain to what we're doing out here and what other people are considering or are already doing. So stay tuned for the goats. Yeah, like and comment and definitely subscribe. And, these were some tips and ideas on, saving money and, getting things almost to work for you in just the way that how you design things. So this is essentially how we've created our property up here and the way we have done housing and such, that it's almost, the return on investment in that respect, so just hanging out. What do we got? It's 51 degrees. Pretty high humidity in here. It's pretty humid. 51 degrees. It's about 22 degrees outside. So not too bad for a cloudy day. And that's, just the one benefit of having a greenhouse, a passive solar type structure. So that's just one of those benefits. And I'm sure anybody can, find their own solutions and, find their own inspirations as well and ideas on, the structure that they want to build in the future, or maybe an addition off of their current structure, perhaps. So that's an idea for you. Just wanted to lay some of those things out for you. I'll have another video soon. So thank you, everybody.